Sit down.
Yes, sir, we promised you a great main event here tonight.
Now I want a nice, clean game. From all of you.
That's great.
Call us the R word.
Yeah, even has moments of integrity.
But this has been awesome, and we should do this again.
You're funny.
Are you not entertained?
ATF murdering people.
Is this not why you were here?
With the plan to exterminate the Jews of Europe.
A radical libertarian.
Things on homosexuality and stuff, or just the petty little things that
I'm gonna hop in here real quick.
Like, fucking yes, obviously I did that. And I...
Welcome to Fight Club.
This is FSM.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Free Speech Media Corp. Who's ready for a fight tonight? We've got a good one on the cards for you. A former LNC staffer versus a current LNC region rep in a battle as old as the movement itself. But before we get into all of that fun stuff, let's show just a little bit of love to our sponsors for tonight. First up, you've heard about these guys basically every single show. Blood of Tyrants Wine, the official spirit of 1776. If you're looking for a nice night in while sipping the blood of your enemies and supporting the destruction of the tyrannical state, look no further than Blood of Tyrants Wine, a nice Merlot distributed by activists you know and love. BloodofTyrants.wine is the place to go, and if you use promo code FSM, you'll get 10% off of your first order. And now they also have a all-natural energy drink, which is what I and also one of our guests tonight are going to be drinking throughout the show. So definitely go on over, check out both the wine and the new energy drink. They've got some good products, and it supports the movement, it supports the show, it supports the network. So click that link, go buy some stuff, and check those guys out. Next up is Craft and Business Services. They are dedicated to helping entrepreneurs start, grow, and maintain their businesses by providing a wide variety of products and services to make your business more efficient, manageable, and profitable. And they understand how frustrating getting your business off the ground can be, and that's why they've put together their business-in-a-box solutions to turn your idea or side hustle into a fully functioning company in one place for one transparent cost. So for under $1,000, you get your corporate filings, your registered agent, a logo, business cards, marketing strategy, accounting consultation, and more to get you started off on the right foot just for $9.99 plus state theft. So if you come to the conclusion at the end of today's show that you think that there needs to be more organizations out there doing liberty activism, and you want to know how to start one of those organizations, go on over to crafton.us/start, and they can help you get that up and off the ground. So definitely go on over and check them out. But without further ado, let's get ready to rumble. Joining us tonight, we have on the left, the creator and Mr. Shawn Hickman, or Roger. And on the right, we have LNC Region 8 rep, Mr. Pat Ford. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thanks, buddy. I mean, the first fundamental issue is I like all you guys. So how am I supposed to have a rumble?
I mean,
Don't worry. I'll say something that's going to absolutely offend you at some point. You'll have to.
Okay, fair enough. I'm good at ginning up outrage. I'm a purveyor of outrage porn, so it's all good.
I mean, knowing Shawn, I think I would put money on that being a true statement. You can typically count on him ruffling somebody's feathers or getting somebody's panties in a bunch. So
On that note, cheers.
Cheers. I mixed mine with vodka, so I'm calling this the blood of Stalin. I took some nice pictures of it, but I didn't get a chance to post them with the link and everything. I was trying to do a little cute little marketing post before we got started and ran out of time. But oh well, I'll do it tomorrow. So let's just get right into it. So I double checked that this framing works out well because I never want to make somebody defend something that they didn't say, but in this case we kind of are. And so Justin Amash put out a statement about a week and a half ago that said why he wasn't going to be running for president. And in that statement encouraged that most of the activism in the liberty movement should be done from outside of the party, and that the party should focus primarily on just running and winning elections. And So Shawn is going to mostly be defending Justin. Pat is going to be taking the alternative. And so I'll hand it off to you first, Shawn, and say like what about that post resonated with you to the point where you wanted to defend it on a debate like this?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing to point out is that there was nothing that he said that was untrue. He had thought about running. He believed that he probably would run at one point, and then he changed his mind about that. And his change of heart, in his own words, came from realizing that that the party was not well positioned to be in a situation to run a competitive campaign. And by competitive, it doesn't mean necessarily winning, but at least being able to make an impact. And his argument is that the party itself should focus on running and winning elections, which is why political parties exist. And so I agree with his framing of this. He also didn't say that it's the only thing. He said, I think his words were, should focus almost exclusively. And I would hope that if he were to clarify this himself, he would state that things like initiatives and referendums would also be very advantageous for parties to go ahead and push. And his point about activism, where the real the messaging can come from, that's a little bit more pushing the envelope. I agree with that. His comment was that if you want to be a successful party, you're going to have to get a third of the people to vote for you. And in order to do that, his argument is that you have to lower the threshold. And the reason why I agree with that is that if you are more liberty leaning than what the Democrats and the Republicans can provide for you, providing an alternative to them is an excellent thing. And then that way you can allow the activists to go out there, evangelize their messaging, and try to change the hearts and minds, issue by issue, and get people more interested in what the movement is all about. Because I think the movement is far more important than the party itself. I'll just say that frankly. But if we're gonna have a party, what is the point of having a party if you're not running candidates and winning elections? So I'll go ahead and stop there. There's more I could add, but I'd love to hear Pat's.
Well, the first thing I'll respond to is there's a word I like to use because I spend a lot of time on AM talk radio, and it's balderdash, which obviously means something else. But this is family-friendly podcasting here, so we'll keep it clean. Okay, it's fucking bullshit. I'm sorry. No, it's balderdash. Balderdash on a couple of counts. First of all, this isn't really directed at Mr. Amash individually, but I'm a little exhausted by candidates, particularly Republican-like, liberty-like candidates, coming across and saying, well, your party isn't well-positioned enough to support me. I missed the episode where a number of these individuals who postured as running as libertarians in the last few years have actually engaged in any work to make the party stronger and to engage in that, what's that euphemism, party building. I missed that.
You're muted. Pat, you muted yourself. Can you not hear me either?
I can hear you, but I think Pat is muted and doesn't know it.
Here, let me see if I can set him
From gaining.
There we go.
And that's not a shot at it. There's a lot of people doing great activism, and our chair has worked diligently to build single issue coalitions, which to me is an extension of activism. Coming from the Libertarian Party to reach out, particularly in the anti-war and peace arena. I think significant work has been done to that. So I'm painting with a very broad brush, and I think we have to, let's just both agree that's sort of a disclaimer for this evening. We're not here to diminish anyone's individual efforts, including Mr. Amash. But we're in a very different place in the Republican Party, despite the fact that we've got 51 years under our belt. we have yet to gain that sort of widespread traction. And one of the most significant reasons, this is coming from someone who's literally spent a lifetime of politics and in sales, is that we have failed at a large level to connect with voters. And you don't do that by showing up every 2 to 4 years and saying, here I am, I've got the best ideas. And by the way, we do have the best ideas, but I haven't done anything in the interim to connect with the community. And you do that by activism. And when you look at some of the nascent political parties that have popped up in the last 15 to 20 years, and I'm talking about Democratic Socialists, working family parties, they've all engaged in activism. On a personal level, I've gained traction in the state of Rhode Island, both the libertarian movement and some of our other efforts, because I testify, I legislate, I protest, I report, I petition, all of that. Because there are issues occurring in every state, and every state's different. In our state, criminal justice reform is a huge issue. Crony corporatism is a huge issue. Libertarians have been front and center in present sense on the streets with a number of our organizations with whom single issue coalitions would be a really good description of the relationship between libertarianism and these other political groups who differ from us widely on issues of economics. But to say that we can just simply show up every couple of years, again, painting with a broad brush, without having made the connections, or as importantly, gain the expertise that you get from actually being intimately involved in these issues on a day-to-day basis, that's hopelessly naive. And it's dangerous.
So,
because we're about to go through another cycle where we're probably going to be struggling to get low single digits, and that's immensely frustrating.
Yeah,
I'll give you some.
So I just want to hop in here and clarify real quick, because I don't think Shawn or I could reasonably defend that activism isn't the most useful thing to be doing. It's just like in general for the movement, because like I mean, Shawn already said that like he cares more about the greater movement than the party, and I'm assuming that's why he, like I, left the party to go do activism elsewhere. So as far as like activism being the right thing to be doing versus just showing up every 2 to 4 years, 100% agree. The differentiation is whether or not that activism needs to be coming from inside of a registered political party or a different organization that's maybe better suited for being an activism organization. Because like, even to your point, the Working Families Party or the Green Party or some of those other parties, no NGOs that are doing the activism.
See, I'll disagree with that because, and again, I'm speaking from
at least in New York, as far as the Working Families goes.
Right. Right. So I'll give you some specifics. I routinely march alongside of, report on, testify along with on issues like criminal justice reform with the NAACP, Black Lives Matter, as well as an organization in Rhode Island called DARE, Direct Action for Rights and Equality, which actually predates a lot of the activists here in Rhode Island. I routinely walk, and by the way, these are coming from organizations like DSA, Working Families Party, who are political organizations. Black Lives Matter, in the case of Rhode Island, is actually a political action committee. Getting ballot status in Rhode Island is very difficult. But again, let me use, so that's on one hand, but I'll use a specific Libertarian Party example, and that's the fight against corporate welfare. 10 years ago, if you described to someone a libertarian, they would say we are a Koch brother loving, God, I wish I had the money, right? Koch brother loving corporatist who stands only in behalf of the cold capitalist. Well, the Libertarian Party, with Libertarian Party officers engaged in picket lines, testify, protests, call-ins, virtually every angle of activism you can get in fighting corporate welfare. And we have had participated in wins. We were given a lot of credit for defeating, and remember, these are Rhode Island numbers, tiny by comparison to the Empire State, but we defeated 2 baseball stadiums with $100+ million tax subsidies. We held off for years a large-scale office development in downtown receiving money. And we're following up after the fact to demonstrate where they will now fail. So, and as a result, and this is the critical part, no one in Rhode Island with a straight face who's involved in politics at all will define the Libertarian Party as crony, corporatist, Koch brother loving, blah, 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 blah. They won't. People will laugh at you because we've spent so much time as an organization on media, in person, protests, fighting that. And that's the advantage of activism, because ultimately we are judged by the narratives and the cliches that are placed upon us, and we have the ability to control that. Now, if we did that with a third-party organization, it wouldn't have the resonance for us as libertarians. And I'll just close out. And David, you helped out on this. You were a big help, a huge help this weekend up in Maine, and I really appreciate that as the Region 8 guy and someone who's a lot of love for what Harrison Kemp and his crew are doing up in Maine. But we spent about an hour out of an entire weekend directly distributing water to a pretty brutal homeless encampment outside of Portland, Maine. Mm-hmm. Right? Libertarians did that. It was Libertarian Mutual Aid, an organization I'm in the throes of starting, that will work directly with Libertarian affiliates to promote their activism. And in the big picture, one night not going to make a huge difference. We made people's lives a little bit more pleasant for a night or two or three or four, but the feeling that came out of that, the camaraderie that came out of that, was palpable. And all of a sudden, we were actively engaging, and we did this in Vermont. We've done this in other places in Florida. We were actively engaging in work that personified the Libertarian mission, which was replacing the state in this case. Long story, but incredibly enough, in so many places around the Northeast, states spend literally bazillions of dollars and don't provide water to people who are homeless. Yeah. Crazy stuff, right? But ultimately, it's libertarians fulfilling the mission of replacing government and reinstilling the virtues of private charity. And we did it for real for a couple hours that night. And you've been involved, and other people are involved in doing it in different spots around the country. We made 5 trips to Vermont with vans. I wish it was trucks, but 11-foot vans full of supplies for people who've largely been abandoned by FEMA and organizations like that. That was done through the Libertarian Party of Vermont, and people now associate the Libertarian Party of Vermont as actually having a response to the classic issue: what do we do if we take away government? What will happen? Well, private charity actually can work. So that's why I'm so passionate about it. We change lives and we amplify the libertarian message, and at the same time, and this is what my frustration is with people like Mr. Amash. Again, very successful politician, brilliant man. A little more party building as opposed to a mosh building would be great. I hackle at my hackles are raised, I think is the term, at the notion that somehow we haven't done enough for him to be his personal platform for the presidency. There you go. You see, it's been 10 minutes, I'm already offended.
So how about this? My response here is probably going to annoy you, because I think the idea that that we should focus more on party building and less Amash building, that's a clever thing to say, but how is it working, building this party? His point is, if we narrowed our focus on winning elections, we might actually be able to accomplish some things. We might have actually been able to be more successful with growing membership. We might not have bled as much donors as we have. Perhaps
and he knows that from how? How does he know these things when he's, except for those brief spurts when he's deigned to consider us to be his platform. Okay. And the reason why we lose elections,
let him finish, Pat. Let him finish.
I'm sorry, buddy.
Yeah. So look, like I said, I knew this would annoy you, and that's not why I'm saying it. I'm saying it because it has the added virtue of being true. The Libertarian Party is losing members. The Libertarian Party is losing revenue. And that is something that I know intimately, as you know, because you and I worked together for fundraising. So we know where that is at. And we know that the party has done a terrible job at that. We don't focus well enough on the things that matter. And ballot access is something that requires volunteers. It also requires money. And in order to be able to do that, you have to have your shit in a kit. And the Libertarian Party doesn't have that. And so if we're going to then say that that Justin Amash is not the right person, Well, let's be honest. If we had our shit in the kit, the Justin Amash's, who does have a lot of credibility, as well as other candidates that probably would have ran if there would have been a better position for them to do that, Spike Cohen being one of them, perhaps. What we have now is we have a caucus that's pushing a guy that 6 years ago was a Marxist, then he's MAGA, and now all of a sudden he's the standard bearer for the Libertarian Party? I don't think so. If we're going to say that that's a candidate that we want to push, but Justin Amash somehow is not, then I don't recognize this party at all.
Well, there's a couple of ways you can respond to that. First of all, the reason why we don't win elections is largely in part we have little or no connection to the community. Again, painting with a broad brush because there's plenty of people who do. All right. But largely, we're just on an island preaching some fairly, and by the way, I believe in all these principles and I believe in these altruistic responses, but without really any connection to the community to provide an alternative. So we can wax poetic about criminal justice reform, as does a lot of virtue signaling congressmen do. And yet, where are we in the actual fight for criminal justice reform? The way you build political alliances, and again, I'm a street politician. All right, I don't sit and this has nothing to do with you, by the way. But there's lots of conversation and very little action. And so he's judging it from the perspective of an establishment party regular Republican. Well, again, I mean, he's had years to go out there and beat the streets. Listen, Spike Cohen, righteous dude, goes out and beats the streets. All right. But ultimately, I've suffered through years of Republican-like candidates, all right, who are, eager to use our ballot access and less so eager to actually conform to. I'm a radical libertarian. I want to end public education, and I actually fight to do so on a regular basis. I want to end the welfare state, and I fight to do so, but also provide responses that actually have the potential to work, or at least begin to roll back the welfare state. It's not good enough anymore to sit idly by and spend all this time talking when, in fact, it's actual networking, work alongside of, if you will, solution providing work that builds in the real world political alliances. Mr. Amash is a member of an established political party that takes in literally bazillions of dollars every year. It's very easy.
Not anymore. Let's stop pretend like I don't know why you're pretending like he's still always an registered R, because he's not.
He published a piece that says why I'm no longer a member of the Libertarian Party. I'm not, again, he's a brilliant man. He's very successful, but I'm not interested in controlled opposition preaching to me about how we should run our party. Should we be doing a better job?
Didn't
Absolutely.
Chase Oliver publish something fairly similar? You didn't seem to be this upset with him over the weekend.
What's that? We didn't talk. I was trying to be nice. It's hard.
Right. But I mean, Amash is far from alone in leaving the party loudly.
A couple of years ago, well, what's the old line? This Libertarian Party is not an airport. You don't have to announce your arrivals or departures. He was nice enough to put on the L for a few months after it was clear that his days in D.C. were, largely by his choice, I guess, coming to an end. And I appreciate that. It was a magnanimous move. But again, what would be great? How's it go? You guys was off space. That'd be great if he had spent the next year or so, even just engaging in party building, touring the Northeast, and for example, and maybe engaging in fundraising with affiliates, and giving speeches as to his vision for the libertarian movement. I may have missed it, but I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I mean, I saw him at 7 or 8 different conventions in 2021, helping out with fundraising. When
he was considering using our party. When he was considering using our party, when the apple lost its shine, exit stage left, as they say.
Can I ask you a question? Why is it that Justin is the not libertarian enough Republican that's tried to latch himself onto the party, but another libertarian that left the party a long time ago and had a successful career in the Republican Republican Party, Ron Paul, is a hero to everybody. How is it Ron Paul maintains hero status with his long tenure in the Republican Party, but Justin Amash is just the way you're saying it, Justin Amash is just another Bill Weld?
No, I didn't go that far. No one's another Bill Weld. I have history with Bill Weld, and I would never insult Mr. Amash for that. And Mr. Amash to me is just represents sort of the ideal of the quote unquote liberty Republican coming over, hanging out with us for a while. Cool. Again, brilliant, successful man. It's what you do when you're not running for the big office that really matters, which is one of the reasons why I admire Spike. It's what you do when no one's looking.
What was Michael Reckenwald doing when nobody was looking?
Link Chafee came in and did a splash too. He became Link Chafee's a lifetime member of the Libertarian Party. He donated money. He went to a bunch of conventions, and then he's a good man. I wouldn't say I know him personally, but I know him well. We're on a first name basis. As is Justin Amash. I don't know him well. I'm not on a first name basis. They're all good men. What I personally, and I only speak for myself personally, like this, is that I'm looking for radical libertarians to not try to this endless pursuit of liberty light Republicans. They want to come along, great, but I'm not interested in that.
So Pat, Pat, you made a great point. You said something very interesting. You said that you want them to do something, when nobody's looking. Can you walk me through the credentials? What did Michael Rectenwald do for the party?
I'm not here to defend. I made it very clear on a national level that I neither support or endorse any presidential candidate. It's inappropriate for a member of the LNC to be involved in supporting candidates. That's my personal belief. All right. So that's why I was very happy to walk alongside of Chase this weekend, as I was as Lars. And I've gotten to know Mike Tremont. I've been at a number of events with him. My responsibility, I believe, as a region rep, is anytime any one of them want to come to our territory, that I do whatever I can to help them and promote their appearance, regardless of what I feel personally. I believe that it's my job to subsume that and simply work for whoever. I supported somebody else in 2020. I took off and worked across the region doing media for Joe. The 10 minutes after the convention, 5 minutes after the convention, hey, they're the candidate. That's when I go to work for them. Other than that, it's my job to make them feel at home and promote them, because every one of these candidates right now, I feel, will do a good job of during the primary period representing libertarianism. So I'm not here to defend anyone or acknowledge anyone or promote anyone for that matter, their personal, attributes of running for the presidency. I'm just not. And I'm not.
Let me ask you a question.
What about it?
Let me ask you a question, and don't answer it. Maybe we could just get your facial expression. Who do you think's more boring, Joe Jorgensen or Michael Rectenwald?
Who's more boring?
Who's a bigger bore? Who bores you to tears more, Michael or Joe?
Neither of them do. I like them both. I had fun with Joe. We had some good conversations. I was on a stretch of the campaign.
All right, I think you just lost the debate. I'm kidding.
No,
I'm fucking with you.
I don't. You'll never hear me attack. Well, I shouldn't say that. You'll never hear me make fun of someone's personal attributes. I just don't do it, even in lighthearted conversations.
Well, let's try to keep it on. Let's try to stay off of specific people and keep it a little bit more broad, since that is the resolution is a little bit more broad. And also, I'm just gonna throw out a little quip to add some light to the situation. Raj, I can tell that you have still not gotten you're very used to Clubhouse, because you keep muting as soon as you're done talking, without fail, every single time. The second that you stop talking, you're muted, and it's fun. I just find that amusing.
It's also polite, but thank you for noticing. I have a question. So back to Amash and his position on this. If he's wrong that the primary focus of the party should be to focus more exclusively on running and winning elections, if that's incorrect, then Pat, what is the focus? What should the party's primary focus be?
I don't believe you can run for office without developing both a real handle on the issue, a sophisticated handle on the issue. Particularly, see, we have an advantage and disadvantage as libertarians. We actually have a platform that matters to us, and we have a statement of principles that matters to us. That's not true in any of the parties. I'm old enough to remember when platform night at the Democratic or Republican National Conventions were a bigly deal. Now they're the moral equivalent of, you know, the Academy Awards when the awards that got handed out at some cheesy LA restaurant, and and they get 20 seconds on camera. That's what that's become for them. We have the advantage of having a belief system, so that when we run for office, we can refer to that belief system, and people are always impressed by the fact that so many libertarian candidates have a philosophical and moral prism to look through. The disadvantage of that, of course, is that you actually have to be able to support it. So again, when you get down to the nitty-gritties, I'll take an issue. I'll take a Rhode Island issue. All right, a simple one. Terrible but simple. Solitary confinement. We have one of the worst solitary confinement setups in America. Okay, we are actually in violation, and it's got a little better this year because of some hardcore activism. All right, but we are in violation of the United Nations Mandela rules. Now, am I a fan of the UN? No, but I'll sure be happy to dangle the UN, our failure with the UN, in front of our democratic ultra blue leadership in our state. How can you connect with a population that has been unduly burdened statistically by solitary confinement? It's a brutal system. You don't have to do anything really bad to end up in solitary. You violate administrative rule, you might be in solitary for a week. How do you expect to actually gain any political credibility, any business or personal relationship with people if you are not intimately involved in fighting that? So in order to win elections, you actually have to have a healthy dose of activism. Is it the only thing? Of course not. But it needs to be there, and it needs to be there early and often before you can, again, credibly expect people to get up one day, because no one's having a deathbed conversion in America to waking up and saying, geez, damn, these people were right all along, those libertarians. Man, all right, I'm here, I'm ready. Doesn't happen until you're actually toe-to-toe, marching in line, whether it be in the State House, whether it be in the courthouse, whether it be on the streets of Providence, Rhode Island. You have no relationship that's real. Mr. Amash has the benefit of having been a member of a political party that is part of the fabric of our country and our legal system and our political system. And in doing so, carries forth a knowledge and a legitimacy of the issues surrounding him in a manner that we can't possibly attain. We have to earn our stripes still. And the longer we push off making direct connections with the electoral body, we will continue to have poor turnouts. They're inseparable for our case, particularly because we have a controversial philosophy in today's America. We want to end the welfare state. All right, great, Mr. Ford, you want to end the welfare state. So let's say tomorrow we end it. What do we do about all these people?
Okay, well, we don't have to do preaching to the choir explaining of libertarianism.
Well, but you asked the question. It's the fabric of being a political person in the year 2023? Yeah, it's part of the fabric, and you can accept that, or we can continue to have libertarians talking to other libertarians about being a libertarian, and expect that we're going to show up every couple of years. Again, painting with a broad brush. Lots of good people get it. They're part of it. He doesn't have to deal with that. He's in a different world.
Well, and why aren't we winning more of those? Why aren't we focused?
Because I have an answer.
We are in Pennsylvania.
There's one state in the union that does it.
Right. Look at and I'm not knocking their efforts. What do they call it? I forget what the term they have for it is. But look at what most of those positions are. They're great as a starting point. They're great for PR. They're not intimate to government. The actual day-to-day operations of government. Painting with a broad brush.
I would hardcore disagree, because they targeted specific elections that are. So like my friend Jacob Winograd is elected constable.
Right. And constable doesn't run a town council. Constable doesn't run a city. Constable. It's great, and I'm not knocking it.
Right.
But
instead they actually get be the person that makes the discernment about whether or not they're going to enforce multiple different
Dude, we need town council, we need school commitment. I'm not knocking his efforts. They're
Sure.
great.
But sheriff and
but
constable
your
are
question
still
to me was-
really good.
But your question to me was why we aren't winning our local elections. Because, right, I did a candidate show with the Libertarian Party for about 2.5 years. That's some wonderful people. At the end of every show, I would thank them for running, and I would point out, as I truly believe, that running for political office in this country is the second most patriotic thing you could do, only after being in our nation's armed service for the purpose of the defense of our nation. Very careful about that. All right. So I believe in that. And again, we volunteered every Friday. It was like 2.5 years until my producer had a job change. Or we still probably be doing it. What was a constant in the conversations, hardworking people out there knocking on doors. Overall, not a lot of activism there. So if you were in a community, and it could maybe not political activism, if you ran the Little League, if you ran the Boy Scouts, if you any one of 100 things you did, even in addition to purely political activism, all of a sudden you were considered part of the community. But again, we're showing up, painting with a broad brush, we're showing up without any real history in engaging as a political party in the very issues that we're looking to legislate and to attack. And we're not taken seriously as a result. And I'm talking about someone who's been intimately involved in local office, local candidacies, both covering them and being part of a support staff. Where were the question always was, where were you on this? Where were you on that? Well, in certain cases, libertarians in Rhode Island had an answer. Hey, go to the videotape. I was there. We were fighting corporate subsidies and tax breaks for big companies at the expense of ordinary taxpayers. We were there. And when you say you were there, or when you can look people in the eye because you hung out with them, you disagree with them on a lot of issues, but you had those single issue coalitions, then you've got credibility in the community. That's why we lose local elections. It will take a generation to put that together, in addition to cohesive standard political activity, knocking on doors, doing all the right things. One in the absence of other breeds failure.
So I'll completely agree with the fact that we need to be out there. I don't want to do too much of your debate for you, Shawn, but I'm gonna and I promise I'll push back more on you in a little bit. I do have some tough questions for you, but I want to go back to something you said earlier, Pat, because I think you kind of outed a really good point for Shawn in one of your earlier answers, where you said that you were marching alongside, and then you named 3 nonprofit organizations that aren't parties, and then kind of brush past that.
A nonprofit organization that's not a party.
Well, I'm talking about you mentioned the NAACP, something else, and then BLM. Like those that's the point that I'm usually trying to make when I have this conversation, is that when you look at the other parties, they all have not party organizations that are doing their actual activism in support of the party, and you will not see the Republican or Democratic Party heading up a protest or a march or anything like that. It's going to be BLM or No New Jails or the Sunrise Movement or Extinction Rebellion or the NRA or Defend the Guard or something else.
Okay. So my response to that is pretty straightforward. Again, the Republican and Democratic Party have generations of success and the money to do that. They have an identity, good or bad. I will tell you that the 3 organizations I mentioned, the civil rights, are intimately involved in endorsing the candidates and supporting candidates, and I suspect one of them will attempt to become a political party in the very near future. That being said, until we overcome, quite frankly, in many cases, the wrong-headed narratives that are developed by the Republicans and the Democrats and some of the other third parties who belong, we will. And listen, we saw it firsthand in Portland. You had people who were really, really mad at us. I think in part because of this, and I love this, by the way, the sign you were waving in the beginning, and then Lars took over, the sign that says "Vote for the only anti-war party." And they hate being co-opted because they believe in their mind is moral whatever. Ultimately, until we become established if you look at all the great political movements around the world, some of them nefarious, some of them not so nefarious, all of their early beginnings were based on their support of people's needs. I'm not saying we're going to be writing checks to anybody, but equivalent to that is fighting for fundamental change. So, for example, in Rhode Island, if you're on probation in Rhode Island and you're rearrested, you don't have to be proven guilty. You simply have to be arrested on a charge. You're automatically sent back to prison. It's called 32F, bail violation. And you could be there at a minimum of 10 days, sometimes you're there for 2 months. That's horrific. So we're out there virtue signaling, and I'm, again, painting with a broad brush. There's a lot of good people doing good stuff, but we're out there. And by the way, Harrison Kemp, as a libertarian, big force behind eliminating no-knock cranes in Maine. Okay? But if we as an organization are just out there pontificating, and we aren't intimately involved in the fight against bail, or what they call a 32F violation, we have no credibility. We're not in the same place as the Republican Party. You can make an argument for the establishment, two political parties, that they have everything they need to do exactly that. We don't. We don't have the resources to spin over multiple not-for-profits. We don't. We don't have the credibility as a political party.
I would argue that we don't need to make any more, that we already have most of the ones that we need.
That's a fair point. But again, we're not there yet. We need to get there. It'd be great if we were there. And to you make a completely valid point about the Democratic Party in particular is fantastic at spinning off not-for-profits and ultimately subverting the very campaign finance laws that they put in place to hamper and burden us. They're fantastic at it. All right. The hypocrisy is real. You and I were discussing this weekend messaging on ballot access reform. It is voter suppression. They routinely engage in voter suppression. All right. We have to fight that. Unfortunately, we've got to establish an identity with the community in order to do so. And the best way to do that is through activism. It's not even close.
I definitely agree there. And so I have kind of my follow-up to your point, I think, is actually a point in your favor. So I'm going to frame it as a question to Shawn.
Okay.
I think that one of the biggest failures of the liberty movement currently is being able to actually channel the success of the nonprofits and PACs and LLCs that are doing this stuff, like the 10th Amendment Center, like You Are the Power, like the National Gun Rights Association or the Firearms
Coalition
Policy
Radio
Coalition,
like Coalition Radio Network.
Well, I mean, I hope, if you let me finish, that actually wouldn't be a good example, because that would mean you're not doing your job very well. But because my point is that we are routinely fail to transition any success there into successes of the party, and actually turn volunteers from one into volunteers for the other, or even voters for the other, or really attribute any credit to the LP or the Liberty Movement for the things done by some of these other organizations. So, Shawn, how, if we do focus mostly on just winning elections as the party, how do we still maintain a connection with those activist organizations better than we are currently?
Well, I think it comes down to focus. If that is our focus, if you're asking me the broader question of how do you get people that are motivated to go and do the work to actually pay some dividends for the party, I think part of that comes down to the way that the parties are set up in the first place. We all know that there is some excitement that happens when there is a presidential election. Even if we get somewhere between 1% to 3% of the vote, there's a lot of volunteers that come out. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that the parties are set up, even in those situations, to be able to onboard, retain, and find a job for somebody to do, to keep them motivated, even if it means just wave a sign. You give them something to do. I think we could borrow a lot from the way that churches operate, where they, if you show up at a church for the first time and you're like, hey, I'm a little curious, they will find something for you to do. They will offer you a job to do. They will find something useful for you to do. And I think that the state parties fail at this. And now you may give examples of state parties that are doing fantastic, and that's not the shot that I'm taking. But I think the same thing applies when we start looking at these coalition groups. Who's actually doing the outreach to them? And then how picky are we going to be about that? If somebody says, hey, look, I think we could work with this particular group on justice reform, and then everybody holds their nose up because the group that cares about justice reform happens to be too left-leaning for the people that are in the particular state. There's a lot of gatekeeping about who we can work with and who we can't work with. And I think that this plays into what Justin is saying about lowering that threshold of what it means to be able to support the party, to be able to say, hey, look, if you've got an issue that you think that the Republicans and Democrats are not liberty leaning enough, here's an alternative, and we can provide that to you. And I think the problem is that we don't do that. We do it between the edgelords, between the disorganization, between the inability to prioritize what's important. I don't understand why people do stick around. I honestly don't. Hold on. Let me just wrap this point up. We should be organized in such a way that when somebody raises their hand and says, I believe what you believe, how can we work together? We should be able to answer that question very easily. And I don't think we have good answers for that. And if we did, then show me the evidence of that, and show me this growing coalition, and show me a trend that isn't sliding downwards in terms of membership and donations.
I can only speak for Region 8, because that's where I spend 95% of my libertarian time. I would attribute a lot of your complaints in Region 8 anyway. I stick to stuff that I know about. All of those complaints about the digital world and the edgelording and the gatekeeping absolutely exist in the digital world. In the real world, having worked closely with, we have a new New Jersey chairman, great guy. I've only been down there a couple of times since they've taken over, if you will, and are working in the affiliate. But I will tell you that every single affiliate in Region 8 is ready to roll with volunteers instantly. And works to find.
I'm in New York and I'm in your region, and I can point that out as objectively false because New York is not.
I haven't run into it. And if you want to give me specifics offline, I'm not really into bashing people. Yeah. But I will tell you,
I'm not trying to. I just know that there's nothing for me to be doing in the state party right now. It's one of the reasons why I left, because all I was doing was filling a seat on the state committee, and there was all they do is plan convention and do convention and then plan convention.
I want to depersonalize things because I'm not interested in personalizing. All right.
Fair.
Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, crazy place, right? Massachusetts, Connecticut. Right? Call Billy Hunt, and he's got in Rhode Island. He'll have you signed up and ready to roll in minutes because it's a tiny state and it's so very, very blue. We're in the bluest part of the country. You can on some other show we'll have a conversation about how, much like religious organizations, when they face persecution, have a really strong cadre of people supporting them. There's real persecution of liberty, and considering Rhode Island is actually the birthplace of the American Revolution, it's a real challenge. Let me tell you, despite all the fights we've had, despite the progress, the struggle is still very real. I just dispute that. I know a lot of places around the country where, and I will not dismiss as anecdotal people's individual experiences. I have too much respect for libertarians to do that. But at the same time, I have largely found a welcome back for people who are committed volunteers. And I'm sorry that people run into that. And if you guys know people who run into that, who are looking for work to do some other place in the movement because they don't feel comfortable where they are, let me know, because I got a lot of work to get done. We just do.
So, Pat,
I just have
Pat, what do you think about some of the ideological differences? And I don't want to get into those specifically, but if somebody, let's say, has been with the party for a long time and might have a couple of issues and they're not in favor with whatever the new in trend in the party is. You've got people that can do valuable work that find themselves having a hard time getting voted on to a state executive committee, a hard time to becoming a delegate, and then when they realize that, wow, even though I'm capable and I'm dedicated, this ideological rift is separating me from the party. To hell with it, I'm going to leave. How do you fix that problem?
I think you either, first of all, and again, painting with, we should come up with an acronym, painting with a broad brush. Okay, PWAP, all right? Folks need to understand, again, maybe I've been around politics all my life, all right? My mom, growing up, ran the Democratic Party in our town for a while and was very active in the 60s, okay? When I was very young, very, very young, into the 70s. Political organizations are always going to be subject to leadership flux, and as a result, so will, if you will, the management. Go to any city or town, municipal, I'll take Providence for now as an example, very political place. When the new mayor comes in, changes happen. Now, people can react to one of two things. I lost an LNC election, and I'm not going to use myself as an example. I'd like to think that I didn't slink away in defeat. Now, I'm not saying people are, but I'd like to think that I stood and found things to do that necessarily didn't require the endorsement or even the supervision or even the permission of anybody. There is so much work to be done. And listen, I'm on social media all day. Social media for me is a great place to promote things that happened in the real world. Social media is not real. It's a great place to advertise all sorts of things. All right. Other than that, I see the same group of people. They're very upset. And, and I will not diminish their reasons for being upset, even if I don't agree with them. But at the same time, it'd be really great to hear, you know what? Yeah, I don't like this at all. I don't like this at all. So we did this. Because usually, in so many cases, again, painting with a PWAP, painting with a broad brush. All right. So many cases, that's where the conversation ends. And there's so little support of what goes on that's good. Because there are a lot of good things going on. Yeah. I wish that got as much attention. But I'm never going to diminish people's negative experiences because that's, sadly, that's a byproduct of politics. We all need to be a lot nicer to each other. We all need to be supportive of each other's perspectives. Particularly if you're a libertarian, where there's so much diversity. We all need to support each other's projects, even if they're ours, even if they're not done by the people we voted for. I'm no profile in courage, but did I tell you, I voted for somebody else on every ballot. I did not support Joe Jorgensen even once in any of the ballots. But you know what? Hammer time. She's the candidate. I go to work. A little bit more of that. Yeah, I'm not going to hold myself out as anybody to be an example for anything. But the spirit was there. And I just wish there was more of that generosity spirit on all sides.
I get it. While we're on Joe, just for a second, can I just say that when after the election, when the story was, we had the lowest.
You're a little faint on me. Sorry.
Yeah, why are you whispering that? You it sounded like you were leaning in to tell us a secret. You got kind of
it's not it's no secret. So she runs for office. Absolutely just the worst campaign ever. And then she goes around doing a tour, and I'm not ripping her for this because I don't think she expected to win. I think she's somebody that was like, holy shit, I won. Now what do I do? And then so when she gets thrusted into this, the story of how successful her campaign was that we had the lowest cost per vote. If she had it so well figured out, her and her campaign of lowest cost per vote, if that matters, well, why didn't they buy more votes? Why did if it was so cheap, if it was so cheap to get a vote, she should have bought more of them.
All right. I listen again. I'm much more of a radical libertarian than Joe is. I'm extreme. What was when you're a bordertarian? Let me just see if I get this right straight, because I'm not real good on this libertarian stuff or the labels because they don't matter to me really. But I'm one of those people who doesn't even believe in borders at all, anywhere, anytime.
Same.
All right.
Based.
So I believe in ending public education now. I don't believe in vouchers or any of that stuff. All right. So Joe wasn't my first choice, but I'm going to speak positively a couple of things. And people know me. I'm not one of these Pollyannish types, but a couple of things that I saw that were great. First of all, I was I think it was called a project manager for one of the tours. 7 cities, northern New England. Came off pretty well. We got media there. We got earned media. I love the fact that there were a lot of younger libertarians doing the day-to-day work, because hopefully a lot of them learned on the field and brought it with them. It's one of the only times I'm going to agree with Reason Magazine in the last 4 years was when they just wrote an article describing that we actually had a libertarian base. It's probably about 1.9 million votes, because Joe Jorgensen had no national reputation, ran a moderate to soft libertarian campaign, and still managed to get a lot of votes, despite not having the big money. All right. So I'm going to look at some of the successes there. I met a bunch of people who worked really hard and did a lot of great things in an extremely difficult period of time. I just remember, we were trying to have a Joe appearance near Dartmouth, and Dartmouth is supposed to be the, Republican, whatever, conservative of the schools. They wanted nothing to do with us. Ironically, then we went to Burlington, Vermont, and at the first day we were there trying to get a venue to have an event, we pretty much got scoffed at. I asked for them to reconsider. I'll never forget. I told David the story. I'll never forget the call I got, or actually I called them, the city of Burlington, on a Monday morning, and asked the immortal question. So, hey, did you find us a place in the heart of COVID where we can have 100 people gather? And there's this long silence, and she goes, I talked to my boss, and we all know what that usually means. And he said, are you selling anything? No. Are you selling tickets? No. Well, under the First Amendment, you're free to have a speech anywhere you like. We prefer you have it at one of these locations, but you're free to come.
Yeah.
There was a lot of good things that happened on that campaign. I spent time on it. I worked for it, volunteer, sadly. But there were good things that came out of that. And it was a moment in time where people overcame a lot of obstacles. We had to get out there on the streets, and you talk to Seth Levy, he'll tell you, Seth Levy's a managerial, logistical genius. If you haven't had a chance to meet him, he's a great guy. I commend him to your attention. But he managed to get us appearances in places that were pretty much on complete lockdown, and they did the best they could. So that's my take on the Joe campaign.
So I want to go back to something Shawn just mentioned about people not getting seats that might be able to do the work or want to do the work. And I'm going to try to not name names or states or anything, so I'll be vague in this because I technically shouldn't know this story. But there was a gentleman who's been in the party for quite some time, held quite a few higher up offices, and ran for treasurer of his state party and got noted quite loudly. And currently that same state party is having an internal debate, and their executive committee is going back and forth saying, man, if only we had a treasurer that was competent in legal matters and understood our election laws here in this state. And I made the joke, actually naming the name, which didn't get a great reaction, but that's a real example of a party that might be functioning better had they worked together.
Well, here's the problem. There's 3 sides to every story: my side, your side, the truth. That same person, and I know who you're talking about, also decided last year to run 2 candidates in New Hampshire, call them libertarians against party-endorsed libertarians. Now, can he do that? Has he got a right to do that? Absolutely. It was legal. Is that indicative of someone who's supporting the party only when he wins? And when he loses, the first thing he does is run libertarian candidates against libertarians? There are a few things that I find that I have a tough time getting around. I'm a pretty forgiving guy. That one was tough. So, you know, this individual that you're talking about, and it's so often the case, is often guilty of the very issues that he or she will rail against. And in that case, absolutely.
Now,
So,
I mean, I won't
you know,
defend what you're talking
it's
about at all,
politics.
but I'll make the point that that happened after he got noted.
It was already in process. But here's the bigger point. It's politics. You know, I don't see very many big city mayors, elected people, and that's what we're supposed to be doing, right? That's one of the themes of tonight is what we have to do to get elected. I hate to be like this, but if you win an election, odds are you're going to bring your own people in. And odds are people are going to go away. You got two choices then. All right. Because that's just how it works. And there are times when it's not fair. So you have two choices. You can either fight the good fight honorably and do things to fight for liberty outside of the party or inside of the party, which whatever your personal choice is. We're libertarians. We get to pick our own. We get to make our own rules, right? Or you can engage in takeovers of state parties and engage in, you know, internal war. You could do that, but you know that has ramifications. So I'm not going to be able to, because I've been on both sides of that. I have. It's politics, and people need to get over the fact that when a new regime is elected at any level in any part of American civic life, things sometimes change, and sometimes they don't change for the better, and sometimes it's unfair, and sometimes it's brutal.
I think the
But
term
if you
NOTA
want a
is
state job, go work for IBM.
The term NOTA is indicative of there not being someone else that was brought in there. It was a position that was left blank for months or for weeks.
Well, that's their choice. You know, you just because someone's in someone's mind is competent and a hell of a guy or gal doesn't mean in political life they get to keep on keeping on. Again, it's a cold, vicious business. But this notion that somehow, you know, after an election in which, quite frankly, there was a lot of brutality being tossed around by all sides, that there's some sort of like, all right, we're going to be friends now. Democrats do that all the time. You know, I'll never forget this. And this is relevant to the conversation. So years ago, was it Sandra Day O'Connor? She was retiring, and all of a sudden the Democrats invented this notion that there was supposed to be a swing middle. You know, they completely invented this narrative that this certain type of person was to get in, and that just happened to benefit them. So, you know, elections have consequences, and sometimes they're ugly, and sometimes good people get hurt. If folks can't deal with that, probably politics is not a good place for them to be. Know the risks.
Right. They should probably just go work in an activist organization where they don't have to worry about any of that stuff.
Oh no, let me tell you, the politics of them could be pretty tough. You know, boy.
Yeah, but you don't have takeover. Like, I mean, I haven't heard of any rogue takeovers of the 10th Amendment Center, the gun rights, the Firearms Policy Coalition, or anything like that.
I got a debate with you. One of the challenges of running a not-for-profit is that you have a board that can go against law. I have a friend who ran an animal shelter thing that over a couple of years developed a good business model, and they got lots of donations, and then one day she was out. Not-for-profits are the toughest because you know what? My little tiny thing, I have some people with me, but it's a kind of the owner. So you know what? Not-for-profits, political organizations are subject to the vagaries of personalities, people who are just carnivorous in their pursuit of something good. It's ugly. It's tough. It's real world.
Can I go back to something you said earlier, Pat? You mentioned something that resonated with me. You said sometimes things change. And when you said that, I immediately thought, yeah, like how the Libertarian Party and the movement used to stand behind the idea of the non-aggression principle. And now it seems like the liberty movement, led by their nodcasters, have moved to the non-retaliatory
I resent that
principle.
Fuck
No, you're
you.
not one of the nodcasters. We know the grifters that I'm referring to. I suspect highly one of them's a Fed, but I don't want to get too spicy.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So rephrase your question for me for a second, because you blipped out for a second.
Yeah, so non-aggression principle, something that I'm 100% on board with.
Yep.
Should not initiate force. But I'm seeing a lot of I don't even know how to describe them. Just I guess philosophically inconsistent libertarians that have now decided that retaliatory force is not something that they support. In fact, I would recommend that the Libertarian Party in their messaging on Twitter remind people in the preamble about seeking a world of liberty, and then going into section 3 where it talks about a denouncing of terrorism and the right to be able to fight back. Retaliatory force is a libertarian principle, and it seems like a lot of people in the liberty movement have lost sight of that, including a lot of people I have a lot of respect for, but I think they've lost the plot when they can't stand up. When the first thing that they say is that they start going with the both sides argument, and they don't have the stones to say, hey, how about release the hostages? That seems to be like an infringement of liberty, right? But they're not saying that. They're saying, oh man, the state of Israel, they're not perfect. Yeah, no state is
How
perfect.
did you get spicier than shitting on Ron Paul?
Well, look, listen. Ron,
I thought that was peak spicy.
Can I just say this? Ron Paul was a great Republican. End of story.
We'll agree to disagree on that. I think Ron Paul is just a great guy.
Russell Means got the nomination in '88. The party would be a different place.
Let me tell you this. There's a bunch. I missed that. You got to get that. I get that back to me in a second. There are a couple people who brought me to this movement. Two of the most diverse, if you want to call them Big Ten, possible. Ron Paul and Gary Johnson. So, I look to a variety of folks who brought me to this movement. I'm not in the Libertarian Party if it wasn't for Gary Johnson. Plain and simple. I'm just not.
Well, so I'll chime up real quick on your behalf, Pat, and say that one good quality libertarian out there that agrees with you, Shawn, is Austin Peterson. He's been nailing this as far as your take is concerned.
Yeah, and I think Nick Gillespie has made some good comments, and I certainly don't consider him a libertarian. He in fact, he would reject it. But I think Yaron Brook has been better than any of the celebritarians that are out there. And I would love to see Dave, or not Clint, because Clint can't even get a sentence out without just quoting Scott Horton. He doesn't have an original thought in his head. But Dave, in a debate against Yaron Brook, I think that would be a good one.
Well, this is where I'm going to toss my own spicy out. I'm all set with more libertarians debating other libertarians. I just am. Goes back to my central theme. Libertarians talking to other libertarians about being libertarians. Now, first of all, I fully support the podcast world. I came from there. I'm convinced that if two guys in a garage have the potential to change one person's mind, it was time well spent. So I'm all in support of podcast world. I do something different. I do hard news as my life. And so it's a completely different angle. Obviously, I'm not without opinions. I'm all set with these celebrity kind of debates. All right, I just am. Take on somebody, engage with somebody, have a good spirited debate with someone who thinks differently than us, like wildly differently, not just an anarcho, social capital, liberal, whatever versus another, alphabet soup of libertarianism. I'm all good. Libertarians talking to other libertarians about being libertarians is helpful, but we need to mix in a little bit more of outward facing. I love my job. I get to talk to United States senators, governors, congressmen, state representatives, speakers of the House, and ask them questions that every libertarian's ever wanted to ask. So I ask them those questions. I have to be, my job is not to debate them, but there's a clear libertarian prism through which I ask questions. And poor David's had to listen to the story about 5 times this weekend. First question I ever asked a certain senator was day after the assassination of the Haitian president. First question I asked him was, the United States had any complicity in the assassination of the Haitian president? Set the tone, baby. Asked him a few weeks later when it was found out that two of the assassins had actually gone to the University of the Americas. I believe it's at Fort Benning. I asked him if the United States was still in the business of training future assassins. That was a sitting senator. Let's direct some of the energy outward facing.
I don't think that has nothing to do with the abandonment of the non-aggression principle and the
somehow we
party.
walked into a conversation about, in terms of the abandonment of the non-aggression principle, I haven't abandoned it.
I would love to see whoever manages the Twitter for LP National to just type 3 words: free the hostages. It's not hard. It's 3 words. I know they struggle putting together full sentences, but maybe they could say free the hostages. It's pretty simple.
Have you asked
words?
I'm actually gonna step in here just real quick to defend the LP National Comms director, because it's Brian McWilliams and he's a great dude and I'm a big fan, and I think it's the best decision that the LNC's made since Reno was bringing him in, and it's not perfect, but it's getting a lot better, and I am a big fan of his.
Listen, again, why not? Have you asked him? I mean, it's a great question.
I just want to see 3 words: free the hostages. If they say, if they say that, I think that would, I think that.
Have you tweeted out? And I'm not indicting you. I'm saying to people who disagree with specific stances on social media, and I get how important that is. I get the fact that our forward-facing messaging is critical. All right, get together a group of libertarians, and please don't start a caucus. And you're too smart to start another caucus. but do a group tweet, retweet, and tweet, and tweet, and retweet. And just say
I was pretty happy to see Javier Milei holding an Israeli flag.
That one was unexpected.
I think I sure hope he wins. Maybe Argentina can teach the United States how to be libertarians.
Listen,
to be fair, there's no way he would have won if he was carrying the other flag. Like, we all know that.
Well, listen, I mean, there's one thing we can agree on. There's a whole lot of libertarian churching that needs to go on. Okay, I think we can all agree on that. And I ask people. Listen, I've got a leadership position in the party. I ask people to do 2 things: to lead libertarian lives, and to gradually work into a situation where at least once a day you do something to end the state. Little, it can be big. It's kind of like going to, taking medicine every day. Do one thing to end the state. And also the third thing would be to be kinder. If we can accomplish that,
that would be nice.
Listen, I always, one of the things I always close out with the speech is we have one advantage that no one else does in the world. We're right. It's kind of cool to be right. So
I think that energy might be why most of the other people don't like us.
I'm not worried about hurting feelings of Democrats or Republicans. Just not. I'm as a direction personally, I want the party to move in a direction where we are unapologetically libertarian, and we then appeal to other people who realize that they are waking up to the fact that they are unapologetically libertarian. That's all. And you can come from any political tradition you want, as long as you come up with your sleeves rolled up, ready to actually do some work. What was great about this weekend is, wasn't a lot of hanging around. We did, we had some fun, but people were working it this weekend. We just need more of that. We need to get volunteerism into the libertarian gene, both for party purposes and as well as for outward-facing purposes. Everybody, just go to Libertarian Church once a week, every couple of weeks, whatever you can manage in your life. A little bit more, you look at different situations across the country. We just need more hands for the world to do the work.
I would argue that this weekend wasn't activism. It was actively either campaigning or working to make campaigning easier. So
absolutely.
This weekend definitely fell in Shawn's bucket, I think. But
yeah,
I want to go back to.
You did some good, though.
Yeah, I mean, I was there on behalf of a non-party organization called Free Speech Media. But I mean, really, I was there as Harrison's friend because he's a cool guy. But shoot, I lost my. Give me 2 seconds because I had a good train of thought and oh, there we go. Okay. I want to go back to because Shawn already brought it up, the Justin's comments about kind of lowering the threshold of like who we work with and who we build coalitions with. Because Pat, your response to that was that that's mostly only happening online. And although I somewhat agree with the whole Twitter, Twitter isn't real life thing, but like one of the things you brought up earlier on was the anti-war protest that we did. And that was something that there was like huge amounts of backlash for working with organizations that were bad on a few other things. So I think I definitely think that that's a very valid point of a thing that the party is doing very wrong right now. Is just like attacking anyone and everyone. And I'll even take a millisecond here to defend Michael Rechtenwald. I don't love his campaign. I agree with Shawn that it's fairly boring, but homie just was told, hey, we want you to run for president. We've got a caucus that'll back you, and that caucus controls the national party. Like, come on in, let's do a thing. We're running under the same name you've been working under for the last couple of years. Like, let's go. And he's just gotten absolutely fucking trashed by like 80% of the party pretty consistently since day one. And I think that's shitty. I think that we should at least give him a couple of months to see if he does something cool. Like maybe he turns, with a little bit of coaching and a good staff, he actually, and a good speechwriter, he becomes one of the best candidates we've ever seen. Give him a little bit of time. That's my pitch.
I agree with you. Here's the thing. Lincoln Chafee ran for the presidency in the last cycle. Now, again, I just by coincidence, I happen to know Lincoln Chafee. I thought that was a terrible fit, not for the normal reasons. He was not going to change on the Second Amendment. Lincoln Chafee is a highly principled individual who believes what he believes. You can disagree with him. This is a guy, Reader's Digest version. It's an interesting story. Guy gets convicted. Gets charged with murder, or he engaged in what we clearly murdered somebody. Lincoln Chafee held him back and wanted to prosecute him at the state level. The federal government would not agree or not stipulate to the fact that he would be exempt from the then existing death penalty. And Lincoln Chafee said, no, I'm going to hold on to him. You don't get to get him. And they actually went to a very high level court. I forget if it was the Supreme Court or not, but ultimately Lincoln Chafee lost, and the feds got him. I don't know whatever happened. They didn't put him to death, but they wouldn't agree to stipulate to that. So Lincoln Chafee fought this highly charged battle in favor of states' rights, right? So on one hand, he could be brilliantly along line with us, but he refused to be. So what the party needed to do with him was not rush him into running for the presidency. He'd been a United States senator, great all-around guy, donated money. What they needed to do was spend a year or two with him and work through a process.
Yeah,
and then we would have had a pretty good long-term friend. We can't beat people up under the of, I'm not in your tent, so you throw me out, so I'm mad at you, but at the same time, I'm going to beat the crap out of your candidate. That's not right. And to your point, David, listen, we have a process. It's not a written down process, but we have a long campaign trail that you have to go through. And you as a presidential candidate have to talk to people in the field that, you may or may not have ever wanted to talk to. But you know what? We got a process, and it's tough and it's expensive. And a lot of these guys are paying their own freight, to a certain degree. And so we need to respect their input, regardless of how you feel about them as a candidate, because they're willing to do something about the party. As they go from state to state to state to state, they spread the message. And even if it's not 100% in agreement, they're working hard with their own money, their own time, away from their families to spread the message in a battle that they know they will lose. God bless them. God bless Chase. God bless Mike Tremont. God bless Lars. God bless Mr. Richterwald. I don't think I missed anyone else. God bless Joshua Smith.
Oh man, I thought I was gonna be able to cut you off before. Just kidding. Well, at least we found a point where you agree with what Justin was saying. Because
no, wait, but I didn't mean it.
Because I definitely agree. I think Chafee shot himself in the foot. You're right on the Second Amendment thing. He also, I remember before he even announced, he was at an LP New Hampshire event that Nicholas Sarwark invited me to, and I went as his guest, which was really fun. I got really excited about that back in the day. And he was asked what his least favorite part of the LP platform was, and he said abolishing the IRS because he thinks that he didn't say this verbatim, but he basically said in maybe twice as many words, taxes are the price we pay to live in a civilized society.
Exactly, right. I mean, I would hear things like that. I'm like, I knew that's how he felt.
Yeah, but I'm with you. I actually really like him as a politician. Like, his resume is ridiculous, and he's also the first whistleblower on the fact that we didn't have weapons or that whoever the fuck didn't have weapons of mass destruction. Like, he's the person that made that nationally known, and nobody gives him credit for that. I'm actually a big fan of his, and I think that I'm in agreement with you that maybe if he hadn't run for president. But in his defense, that really was the only logical step. Like, he'd has already been a senator and a governor and a congressman.
But
like,
you know
what else are you going to run?
There's something to be said for being an elder statesman. And there's something to be said,
Gary Johnson showed that you can't go back and run the same statewide election that you already won a decade ago as a libertarian and actually win it this time around. So I don't think he couldn't have done. I think the correct move would have been hold off until this round, and he would have just been like the shoo-in for 24.
Well,
I'm going to make a prediction that the Libertarian candidate is going to finish 5th. I think that West will perform better. I think that the independent Kennedy is going to perform better. I think the Libertarian is going to get less than 1% and finish 5th place, and it doesn't matter who it is.
So what do we do? See, that's the problem. What do we do to fight that? Because it matters. Sadly, ballot access rules promulgated by a hopelessly corrupted political system place an unnecessary weight on that. What do we do to fight that? Again,
I would argue
I'm
have
frustrated
a bunch of elected mayors and like state reps and city councilmen and sheriffs that can endorse our presidential candidate.
Well, it's unfortunate. See, to me, the presidential race represents opportunity. If we put up a candidate there who is ruthlessly, unapologetically libertarian, and they get 1% of the vote, I'd rather do that than, again, another Republican light. I'm just not interested in that anymore. Listen, Gary Johnson and even Bill Weld, and listen, again, it's the state of Rhode Island in 2016 was the only state that fired Bill Weld. Got to remind folks of that because we fired him. But we wouldn't support him. We withdrew our support and we wouldn't host him at a planned appearance. All right. But Gary Johnson, for his time, was remarkably libertarian. Bill Weld, before he lost his mind as a governor in Massachusetts, for his time, was remarkably libertarian. Now, we've moved past that. Doesn't mean we shouldn't continue to, show love for Gary Johnson. Bill Weld, we have a saying in my family, don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out. Terrible what he did. And what he did to Gary Johnson. Remember, to me,
I think we're
the
all
phone
in
calls I
agreement
got
on
that
fuck
night.
Bill Weld. Or at least I hope so. Right?
Yeah,
Sean?
I think
we're
we
all
can.
good on that one.
I like Bill Weld better than at least one of the candidates running this year.
Bill Weld's a grift. How about that?
Yeah, no problem.
I'm
No
gonna
problem
make you
saying
name that person if after we go offline. If you won't say it now, because I'm curious.
Here's the problem. I can't say anything more about the candidates because I've talked so much trash that, like, if I were to say who I like in the election, there's going to be people that are going to say, "Oh, well, this asshole liked them, then I shouldn't like them." So I'm just going to shut up about this election because there is two candidates that I do like for completely different reasons, but not enough at this point in time. Not enough to vote for them. When the Libertarian Party moves back to embracing the non-aggression principle and sticking to the platform and understanding that what is actually important, then maybe I'll start voting for them. But I honestly, like, I'm probably going to write in Mickey Mouse this time around. But that being said, I do have a rooting interest for one or two of the people, and I'll just leave it there.
By the way, I think we come in the Kennedy issue is real. Enormous amounts of money are going to flow into that campaign. Unless he self-destructs, that's a very real issue. I still think we do better than anybody else. Kennedy is obviously concerned on a number of levels. What he'll do to the overall vote, the money that will go to him. The same token, I'm not interested in being, there are people out there who posit that he's, maybe we should still approach him. No, he's not a libertarian.
Fuck that.
Do you guys want to speculate? I think this would be fun. Speculate on who the candidates were that turned down the chance to run as the Mises candidate, because who they got was not their first pick, right? That. So do you guys want to speculate on who you think said no?
No.
It's just
Not out loud.
You guys can. I don't. We have a rule in my little business called coalition. And I'm pretty strict about this. And I don't handicap elections for the most part. I'll make it a point like I just did about the RFK Jr. election, but I don't handicap elections. In our look, we're the our tagline is that we're outrage porn free, civilly disobedient media. And we have a couple of rules. Number one, if we like you, we invite you on our shows. If we don't like you, we make fun of you. But if you want to answer our questions as an elected official, we just make answers up. We don't handicap elections. I don't want to know people's polling. I don't give a crap about their fundraising. I don't want to know if they are going to win. I want to know why they should. And so I don't handicap elections. That includes the primary stuff. It's for the people who are listening and the people who are going to listen. I would add the question, the ask I have of them is to find a state and local issue that they want to get behind and fire themselves up over it. Could be anything. We've got our laundry list here in Rhode Island, different states, different issues. Spoke to a couple people about what's going on, for example, with the Cincinnati sports team, outrageous amount of money that the sports ball teams want. And like, I'm going to try and help them in any little way I can, only not because I'm smarter than anybody, it's just I have a lot of experience in a couple of issues. That's one of them. I'm just going to beg people to find during this election a local candidate and or issue that they can just fire themselves up on and just go to town.
Yeah, and I'm gonna play a little like middleman, nice little bow on a lot of this conversation here, which is basically like do exactly what Pat just said, and then whichever's easier between this argument, go with that. You know, if your local party is a party that you can actually get to do a thing and turn out to go march for criminal justice reform or what, whatever it is, the thing that gets you fired up. If your party is a party that will work with you and that'll actually work, go for it. If not, find a nonprofit or a PAC or something else that might be interested. You Are the Power is usually a pretty good place to start. If it's gun related, Firearm Policy Coalition is amazing. And if there isn't one and your party sucks, come see me. We'll make one together. And I'll do my best to help you do the thing. And so yeah, I think honestly the answer is it really depends on exactly where you are and what the issue is, which option is easier. Because there are places like Maine, for instance, where you mentioned earlier that Harrison was able to get rid of no-knock raids. I would argue, I mean, he did that as a lobbyist, basically, not necessarily within his, party, whatever, but he did that as the party because as the state chair in a state that is mostly libertarian in mindset, the chair of the Libertarian Party carries weight, and he's actually able to do something like that. And no shade to my guy. Colsty couldn't do that in New York because that just doesn't carry the weight. So maybe a lobbyist organization would be the way to go. But that's going to be my nice little medium bow on the conversation.
Well, one of the things, if I could jump in on that and amplify that, I personally believe going forward, based on the success that Harrison's had and a few other people have had, not quite Harrison's level, but other levels, that I think we need to, this is my personal opinion, back away from some of the lawsuits where we've gone after states and it's been tough, and really start to do whatever we can to invest in high-level lobbying from the state affiliates. I'll distinguish. There's certain activism issues which I think should take place at the state level, not necessarily the national level, but it's the lobbying. We're going to approach Rhode Island this year. Me and Billy Hunt, and we've got a Secretary of State who's amenable to change on a number of different levels, and one of them may be the percentages that we need in Rhode Island. Right now, Rhode Island's 5% POTUS or 5% governor. That's it. No other executive office, and a very high level. So it's almost impossible. But short of dropping in literally $1 bazillion, and then you'd only hold it for one cycle anyway. So that's got to change. I think lobbying, to your point, is the way to go. But I'll also say this: I'll take your point one step further. If you want to do something, and you don't feel like you have the local support, first of all, I'd ask you to try as hard as you can. All right, because a lot of the local affiliates are just short of manpower. But there's no harm in going out and starting your own thing. And you can call it Libertarian. You're not running candidates. You can call Libertarian if you want. Okay. We're Libertarians. We get to make our own choices. But start your own thing. If the spirit moves you. I had a transformational experience this summer. I'm standing at a press conference in a 90+ degree weather, and a guy walks up to me, and I've been working with a not-for-profit as a volunteer. That's another whole conversation. With Libertarians, we don't need to run the things. Just sometimes showing up and being the grunt is good. But I'm standing in this field with about 30 tents of homeless people, just brutal. I mean, this is just everything bad about homelessness is happening in this quarter square mile. And guy comes up to me, and he's always wearing his jeans. It was clear he was using. And I have no judgment there. It's an illness. It's a disease. And he comes up to me and goes, "Man, do you have any cold water?" And by chance, I just picked up 2 pallets of bottled water. And I opened up the truck, and the guy's eyes are like, "What?" It wasn't cold. We ended up passing out 40 packs of water to each tent. Again, we're not talking Mother Teresa level, no profiles and cards. This is pretty simple shit. And all of a sudden, we realized that nobody in these damn encampments being given water. So we passed out like every tent got a 40-pack. You'd have thought it was Christmas. And again, I'm looking at myself like, Jesus, I'm not doing that much. So now we do that a lot. And I call it the Water Project. And it's something that we don't have the manpower or something in the party. So started doing it. And everybody can just start doing good things. Sometimes it's not that complicated. I don't have any bylaws. I have no board. I don't have a policy manual. We've got a Facebook page, and that's it. In a very unlibertarian way, we decided just to try and do some stuff rather than we build up this overarching organization with board meetings and things like that. We just get together and somebody gives us stuff, some people chip in, and we just give shit out. It's remarkably simple.
As the moderator, I'm going to give this as a point. It is a very beautiful point, but I'm going to give it as a point to Shawn because that's not the party. You created another coalition organization outside of the party to actually get the thing done. So.
But it's actually called. And here's where I'll agree to disagree with you on that. There's two things. First of all, the effort is being built around an effort to support libertarian affiliates. Outside maybe the National Party, but very much within the libertarian affiliate world. All right, because we were also the same group that we're doing the disaster recovery for, which we did in Vermont, as well as a small case in Florida and a couple times in Kentucky. So, in a way, you're right and you're wrong. I'll disagree with you. You're not wrong. That's bad. The point's well made, but quite frankly, I'm looking to create an organization that's in direct support of libertarian affiliates. So it will be very much within the party.
So, but that's the thing. Being an organization outside of the party doesn't mean that you can't support the party as that organization. Well, I mean, depending on how you structure it, there's laws involved. Like if it's a C3, you can't.
Well, I'm looking. One of the things.
My argument is that there should be more organizations doing exactly what you just said. And my problem with the movement right now is that there's one or there's the other, and there's not very many people, which is why I specifically told you that nothing that you're doing fits into most of my critiques, is because exactly how you just said it is what these organizations need to do, in my opinion at least, is that they need to be organizations that aren't the party, that have a different name, that can work with more groups and do more things and not have to have the board meetings and all of those other things. But they are in existence as libertarian organizations that support Libertarian Party candidates, Libertarian Party affiliates, and Libertarian Party ambitions, instead of just being these fucking asteroids out here. They need to be, moons actually orbiting the party and the movement.
That's where we're going, because we've got a couple of people who, when it came to the natural disasters, have agreed to and have actually helped us out, who are actively party members. And in terms of the facing forward, it will be a Libertarian Party affiliate organization. So I consider that an extension of the party. I'm not so much worried about the physical structure. It's just that it's clear when we've done the state relief work, it's clear that it's the Libertarian Party of Vermont. It was the Libertarian Party of Florida. It was the Libertarian Party of Kentucky that did these things. Mm-hmm. So, and if anyone, for people out listening, if to your point, in terms of looking for things to do, I need, there's a group of us and we need point people at the state affiliate level, because the whole point is to coordinate this through local affiliates to grow the party. People see us, you can do good and look good at the same time. If people see us actually providing a response as libertarians, as the Libertarian Party of fill in the blanks, to the existential question is, what happens to poor people when government goes away? Even at some basic organic level, people see that makes a lot of difference to them. If people just see us pontificating about, arguing about just how we're going to end the welfare state, as opposed to what we think should happen after it exists, because, we don't want people to die. We don't want people to get sick. We don't want the sick to get sicker. what can we do as a society to more efficiently? Listen, I loathe the big not-for-profits. We've got a homeless organization in our state where the CEO makes 349. I think the last time I talked about this, David, I said she was making 309. I checked this week; she got a raise. She's making just under $350,000 a year in a state with barely 1 million people, coordinating homeless relief efforts and building out relief system. That's obscene to me. Now, you know what? It's a free market, I guess, except they're using government money. So they're using money taken to the power of force and violence and using it so that this person can make it a thoroughly unaccountable not-for-profit $350,000 a year. That's just fucking nuts. And you know, so
I want that job.
you know, you know, the top 5 people in her organization make well in excess annually $1 million a year. There's good money helping the poor. I want that to end because a lot of these not-for-profits are parking lots for failed politicians. And I just want it to end. And I want to replace it with organic charity. And as libertarians, if we're going to preach that, we got to do it.
Yeah.
We got to do it under the party name to whatever degree possible so that libertarians can actually gain legitimacy in advocating for ending the state, because we're actually working towards providing not just ending the state, but an antidote for the state, as well as an antidote for the state. We're actually replacing the state with voluntary support from people's private funds that they're giving. The most important thing is people who participate in any of the stuff that we're doing are doing it by choice. There is no violence if they do not do it.
Yeah.
And that's how I probably wrap it up on that.
So
I'm also losing my voice.
I want to bring up one more thing.
Sure.
That I will caveat is going to be the least libertarian thing I say all night, and is kind of sponsored or by our sponsor, but there is a big element of like the other sponsor, the legality of a lot of this, and you know, the tax incentives of other organizations, and like even you mentioned lobbying. In a lot of states, a political party can't register as a lobbyist organization, nor can a nonprofit. It actually has to be an LLC, or a C corp. I was actually just looking into that stuff last night and today, and there's actually a lot more states than I realized where you have to be a for-profit company to register as a lobbyist organization. And so the state party couldn't even do that. Like, they would have to have an officer or a member, you know, go make an LLC and contract them to do it anyway. So why not, you know, have like you mentioned earlier, the Democrats and the Republicans often abuse the laws that they put in place to hold us down. Why are we not copying the ways that they're abusing these laws to make it more profitable for us, better for our donors, and a little bit more seamless?
I don't know why I just lost power there, or not lost power. I'm running low on battery. It's a great point because, frankly, in Rhode Island, like many states, you've got campaign donation limitations. I'm gonna have to go off mic here so I can plug in my battery. You've got that situation. So what my friends on the left have done is they don't just have one group that's anti-2A. They've got 2 or 3 or 4. So all of a sudden, can you still hear me now, by the way? Okay. So all of a sudden, if I lose you, it's because of the battery. All of a sudden, if you're a wealthy person who's anti-2A, you can donate, instead of $2,000, you can donate $8,000. And those groups there's nothing preventing cross-board memberships. And those groups can then donate that money multiple times over to one Democratic candidate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's god awful. So you're absolutely right. I mean, they have ratcheted the system up against us. In Rhode Island, for example, believe it or not, the Libertarian Party cannot give money to the National Libertarian Party to the Libertarian Party in Rhode Island. They have to direct pay a contractor to do work or a donation in kind, or not even really a true donation in kind. But they can't, the Libertarian Party would have to register with the state of Rhode Island as a political action committee.
Mm-hmm.
Then they would have to have a bank account at a bank that's local to Rhode Island, which is a little easier now than it was. But in many cases, that means for grassroots, semi-national political organizations, or ones that are national like us but smaller, maintaining an entirely different set of compliance, an entirely separate bank account, and it's lunacy. Now, if you're Emily's List, for example, you're one of these big national mega companies that you've got a room full of accounts that can do this,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got millions of dollars in the bank. But if you're the Libertarian National Committee, it's paying.
Yeah.
Maine has got a law, where they can only get $5,000 from the National Party. The rest of it has to be, I think it's fine. Don't hold me. They have to be gerrymandered. So you're right. The rules are ridiculous. It's voter suppression, and we need to shame them for that.
All right. I'm going to turn this question back around on Shawn now, because that really is a big hurdle to doing what we're discussing here, of actually making the other organizations, is that in a lot of ways it's less upkeep than a party, like 1-to-1, or even like maybe 10-to-1. But to do this correctly, there's a lot of hoops to jump through on the legality. We're not exactly the most competent group of people all the time. How do you suggest that we overcome that part of it, Shawn?
Well, look, the people that are interested in helping with the party, helping with single issue coalitions, a lot of them are cut from the same cloth. And there are some people that are very well intentioned, but if we're going to be honest, they're just lowly skilled in the areas that they would need to be in order to affect change. Now that could actually be something we could improve upon if we had people that could train people on how to be a better activist, how to do the things not just that keep the lights on, but that accomplish goals. But you'd also have to have people involved that are willing to set these goals and are skilled in leading people, right? I think what we have, and there's a tremendous collection of smart people, a tremendous collection of capable people. The problem is that they don't gather all at the same table. And in fact, they're told to leave this table for one reason or another. And then what happens is you're left with philosophical debate club, that can't get out of their own way. And I don't think that it matters if you're working for a nonprofit, you probably have a much more clear charter. And there's no offense to Pat, and I don't know if he'd agree with this or not, but when I look at the structure of the party, the disadvantage that I see there, and why I see that how some of these other groups might have a better chance of being successful in doing something, is that the people that run, they want to run, I believe, for the right reasons. They want to get a seat at the table and do things, but then when they get there, they realize that, oh shit, there's work to do. And even though they were well intentioned, the work is like a thing, and then they want to put their beak in the work of the people that they pay to do the work. And so instead of staying in their lane and just hiring competent people to do a job that have a background and a skill, the knowledge, skills, and ability to do a task, you then have people that overstep their bounds, that think because they understand Robert's rules that they can go ahead and just put their beak in everybody's business because they know best. I don't think that's the way you run a party. I don't think that's the way you run any organization. You hire competent people and you get out of their way. I see too many people. And by the way, I'm guilty of voting for a lot of the people that I now think, man, principled libertarians, but you are not organized and you have lost the plot when you think that you're going to just sit back and weaponize Robert's rules and then get good people out of their jobs when they were functional human beings that could have done the work. And so I think the reason why I would trust organizations outside of the LP is that they're not bound by these stupid rules that have been established that get weaponized by a small number of people, because most people don't even understand the damn rules, right? And so the people that do know the rules, they weaponize them, they turn it against the people that they don't like. And guess what? Those people that are weaponizing the rules, they don't have the skill set to roll up their fucking sleeves and do the work that they're telling people they don't know how to do. So they should stay in their lane. And I will even go further to say, I think that the source of that is jealousy. They understand that they've signed up for something. They volunteered a lot of their time and energy, and that I do respect. I respect that wholeheartedly. They also put a lot of money into travel. They invest into the party, and then they look over the fence and they see staffers that are making money, and they say, oh, they're getting paid to do their job. Well, yeah, if you wanted to be a staffer, you should have just applied for a job, you idiot. Don't run for office that you know doesn't pay, and then try to fire the people that you're paying to do the actual work. Sorry, I'm getting a little excited, but Pat, you probably disagree with me.
Well, the big problem is that my battery's at 1%, and I'm not able to charge fast enough to keep this going. So my real fear is I'm going to lose you mid-thought. I'll just say this right now: the way the Libertarian Party is set up in terms of its rules and regulations, in terms of just a kind of that sort of mixed bag of elected people running stuff and not running stuff, that's how it's literally set up. That's how the bylaws are. You know, I'm head of the affiliate support committee, which is exactly, that's how the rules are set up. Again, I've got to work alongside of staff, and we did a point to be made that a board is really not supposed to be running the party, but that's how we're set up. So I think that needs to be changed, and I'd welcome anyone who submitted that as a bylaw to change how we do those things. Right now, you've got LNC members on committees, and that's not really a board function; it's a management function. So you've got this weird mix going on of board members trying to run things and manage staff or work for staff. So it's messy, but right now, unfortunately, that's how we're structured. And we all know that hell hath no fury than a bylaw or a broken, right? So there's a lot of legitimacy in there. I don't subscribe to the fact that there's a lot of jealousy or things like that. I think because of the way we're structured, there's a lot of cross missions there that objectively don't work well in the real world. So I think there's necessary reforms there, but it's got to be done through the convention. It's got to be done through bylaws, because it's not a policy manual. That's how it's written. I probably might want to sign off now, like as I said.
Yeah,
I'm down to.
I was gonna
1%.
say let's call it here. Tell people how to find Coalition Radio real quick, and catch some of the stuff you do.
Okay, so here I go. We are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn-free, civilly disobedient media, broadcasting on the worldwide Coalition Radio Network. Facebook.com/the Coalition Radio, on the mighty Twitter at Coalition_radio, and our sometimes used website. Most of our stuff goes direct to social media at CoalitionRadioNetwork.com. But Facebook.com/Coalition Radio, in true boomer fashion, is the place to find us. And you can see me torturing our governor and a variety of elected officials on literally a daily basis. It's quite entertaining and quite a lot of fun.
All right. And Shawn, tell people how they can find healthy debates and participate in those. If you've got any fun ones coming up, tell me about them.
Yeah, so I'm on anywhere where you find social audio. So X, you can find me on Spaces. You can find Healthy Debates as a community there. You can find on the Clubhouse app, and also on Fanbase, there is also a community. So anywhere where there's social audio, you'll find Healthy Debates, and anywhere you find Healthy Debates, you'll find fun conversations. We do have a room coming up on Thursday talking about which U.S. presidential candidate has the best foreign policies. So that should be a fun one. That will be done on Clubhouse. And so if anybody's not on Clubhouse, they should either get there or just get on X, because we'll be doing things on both.
And if foreign policy is your game, BlinkenWatch.com. It's a new site. It's really right now. It's a playlist of Secretary of State Anthony Blinken videos. We're going to add more to it as we go along, but we started that just about a month ago, and you can watch archival videos as time goes on. The ever-changing nature of our screwed foreign policy at BlinkenWatch.com. So there you go.
All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on. Folks,
Hey,
thanks so
thank
much
you,
for
Alex.
watching. We're going to be back streaming on Free Speech Media tomorrow night with Fight for Liberty with Angelo Veltri, the founder of Save Long Island PAC. We're going to be talking about what he's doing down there. And so definitely come on back tomorrow night, 9:11 p.m., right here on all of the streaming platforms. But until then, keep up the fight.
This is FSM.